Let us continue with our lesson, and the next step is after we have a controller as well as a model over here. So what we'll do is we'll create a function to store our data. So first of all, let's create a function over here, public of a function, and let's call this function as a store. And we have to get a request a request and of our request variable, and let's have it. Just make sure you have a request over here because we are using a request as we are passing a request parameter over here. And you need to add, if it is not there, you just make sure you have added this one, the import the class. And first thing is we need to validate the data that we are passing. So let's validate. Let us copy this same code and let's go over here and validate the data that we are passing. So we need to validate. So if you go to the create table, we need to pass a user ID who is creating it. So user ID we need to validate, right? And next is of our title and a body and status. So I need to pass a title, body, and we have one more which is of status. So all of these fields should not be empty, and it should be of a status. And let's say the name, not the name, so it should be user ID, right? So here is a user ID. Just copy this one and just paste it over here. User ID, title, body, and status. So it should be of a required. We need to have user ID, title is of required, and let's say title is required, and body is also required. So we don't want to get an empty body, and also the status is required. So this is a validation we have over here, and if this validation doesn't pass, then it will throw an error. And the next stage is to just go down over here, and if everything is work, then we will create of one variable of a data is equals to, let's say, a new task. The task we have, which is a model. This task is coming from a model. App the task, you can see app the task is over here. This is our model file. So model will hold from the model we can get a data from our database. So now this data has a reference of a task, and what we'll do is data, and we just need to pass this, and it has a user underscore ID is equals to, we will get a request. So request has a user ID too. We are getting from request, we are getting the user ID, and we are setting it for this task list. Task user ID is to request to user ID. So we have other 1, 2, 3. So what I will do is I'll just copy this down, 2 and 3. So the after user ID is a title. We have to pass task the title is equal to request the title, and the body we have, and it's the task.body is equals to request body, and status copy, and the status is of request status. So we have a status as we have set the data for our new task, and let us save the data.save. So this will just save the record for us in the database. And after we save it, we need to return the response. So I can just say return response of JSON file. So we just say as a return response as JSON, and the return we will return on data and also a status. So 201 should be a status that we have created over here. And I think that should be work fine. We have a function to store data already. And also let us copy the same function. We just copy the same thing and let us create for the edit. So this one should be update, and we should validate the data. And here we should also pass one more field, which is offer ID. Sorry, it should be of ID, and it's required. So ID we are passing for the tax ID. So whenever we are updating, we need to pass ID for our task. And here we can just say as a task, and I can say as a where I will write a query where tax ID is let's say tax ID comma is equals to requested ID. So I can just say as a queue request dot ID. So we are checking, we are finding where the tax ID is equals to requested ID, and we are getting the first, sorry, should be FIRST, first record we are fetching from the record ID into this data. So tax where the ID is requested ID, we are passing the ID over here, and we are getting the first record. And after we have a first record over here, then we will update the user ID, title, body, status, and save it back. And after we save it, then we just response it back the updated data. So that should work fine. So we have an update as well as a store function. So before we continue, I think we just we will commit all the change and git.add. Just run this command, and let's add a commit message over here, and we have added a function for store and update the task. And let's push it. So just go to version control, git, and push it. And we have this one, so just push it. So that should push everything to the GitHub. And on the next step is to test this functionality, store and update. So on the next lesson, we'll go and test it out. So let's meet up in the next lecture. Till then, have a great day.